Welcome to Hidden in Plain Sight. I am, as usual, your not so humble host, Moral Bob. And with me today, I got Odd Man from the Odd Man Out podcast joining us. He's a fellow occult researcher. And then we've brought in the expert, the man, William Ramsey, who has William Ramsey Investigates, a YouTube channel and podcast. And he has written The Prophet of Evil and Children of the Beasts, both books about Crowley and some other fun stuff like 9/11 and the Hollywood pedophile ring and all of that, and how it's all kind of interconnected with everything. So, welcome, William.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. You know, we love all these rabbit hole things, and you know, I've coined a new term for all of us. You know, since people have loved to call us for a very long time conspiracy theorists. I just call us intellectual explorers.
I like that. I think, how about outside the Overton window perceivers?
Yes, exactly. You know, we're the questioners, the questioners of the narrative.
Right. Well, here it gets even worse. How does who puts together the four dimensions of the Overton window?
Right. Who chooses its size?
Right.
And what's acceptable to be in it?
Exactly.
You know,
what's
and
in
then
and what's out.
And then who gets to move it?
Those are all very important questions that a lot of people inside the Overton window don't know or aren't aware that they're in a window enough to ask that question.
It's what's the old saying? From the inside looking out, you can't understand it or explain it, but from the outside looking in, you can't understand it. Something like that.
I think it works like that. It's the fishbowl effect, right? You're in the fishbowl. You're in the Truman zone or something like that. And the outside controllers or people behind the curtain, supposedly. I think that was the old kind of metaphor, you know, the wizard, which still exists to a certain extent.
Sure. Yeah. And now what's crazy is they've removed the curtain and nobody sees the wizard.
Right. They should. Yeah, they really should.
He's right there.
Well, in my book, you know, the 77 was one of Crowley's important terms, right? So it's integrated into 9/11, but it means like Liber Oz. So it references it. It goes to Oz. So sometimes when you see that 77, it transmogrifies. Well, it actually is. It's like corresponds to Oz, really. And so like George W. Bush, that was his number. So you see him with 77 on his forehead, the number of his aircraft carrier 77. So he's like the Wizard of Oz, pulling all that stuff off. He's really an incredible. What he pulled off is really off the charts. It's really not comprehensible unless you have some kind of reading in the kind of esotericism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people caught in the binary paradigm that just don't, even if they're presented with this information, they're just like, oh, I'm sure there's a not conspiracy explanation for that. You're just being crazy. You know, they'll explain away anything that condemns their chosen masters. You know?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of conditioning. Some of that conditioning takes place over generations and through families. So to break that conditioning is, I mean, look at some of these people who are still in these churches or kind of cult things that go through families. They're deep in multi-generational Scientologists. Some of these people in like the Catholic Church do not even see the larger, I mean, it's a global pedo organization. I mean, there's no dude. All the facts indicate that. So why are you still in this group? Like, what's wrong with you? You think they're fulfilling God's will doing this stuff? I mean, yeah. So, I mean, those are just examples of how bad and how deep it can get great. And it's kind of almost like you can look at people who are serfs or slaves. Like this is just our lot in life. Like I'm a worker, I'm working class, or I'm a slave, and I don't think anything else. So, I mean, it's kind of sad, but some people just don't have that. Because I think the internet really opened up or took the blinders off a lot of people, what they were getting from like the mass media, the corporate media, or the Intel run media. Yeah. But we're in a kind of new phase of thought right now where you can actually compare and contrast all these things that some people would just stick you in a corner and call you a conspiracy theorist. Usually when people call me a conspiracy theorist, I kind of feel like I won. Like that was I know that they're lying. Like they don't want to go farther enough or far enough to actually look at my work on the merits or actually look at my research that's been I mean, I've had people test prod and look through. When I published Prophet of Evil in 2010, I had somebody go through the entire book, footnote by footnote, to confirm it. He didn't believe that. He thought that I was literally like writing that book out of like in a rubber room with a straitjacket. And so he went through and checked all the footnotes. And then he came back and said, I was one footnote, I think that was misplaced. So he kind of did an editorial thing for me, but he said everything you did was referenced.
Yeah.
So you couldn't maybe not pull that stuff off. There's no way I could have pulled off some of these books without access to the internet.
Right.
Maybe in a library.
It makes it so much easier to research, and which, I think has gone against this global occult. They didn't realize how, yes, they can program people easier because they're infecting every aspect of everyone's lives from, as young as 7, just constant manipulation of data and everything.
Full spectrum dominance.
Yeah. But at the same time, they can't control it completely, which I think they're trying really hard to do right now. They're realizing that the power that it has, and they are trying really hard to shut everything down. And
you can see that with depersoning and kicking people off of platforms.
Yep.
I mean, they really are trying to, and that's part of the intimidation and also self-censorship. So they're trying to you take out one, you get 9 other people to self-censor.
Yep.
You're very effective. And I think that they're knowingly doing that for sure. So.
Oh yeah. I know so many people that say, I can't post this online. I'll get banned, so people just stifle their own speech. Not me.
It's a shame.
I just put it out there. If you want to ban me, I'll just create another site. Like I'll just,
right. Well, I'll
just keep popping back up. It takes 5 seconds to create a new email address. And then I just create another page and I just keep going. Like you can't.
Here's the thing. Here's what's really important to recognize is that the content creators have all the power. They don't realize it, but it's not these websites. It's the people on there. So It's kind of like the Led Zeppelin. I call it the Led Zeppelin principle. They were the first band to realize that the stadiums didn't matter. It was them that sold the tickets. And that's the same thing for the content creators. Is people follow you. So get off. I deleted my Facebook page and I deleted my Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I don't miss it at all. And when I hear people are on like Facebook, I'm like, what? You're like, you're still on Facebook? Like, I don't want to get into it, but I'm still using YouTube, so I can't say I use Gmail, so I'm not 100% pure, but I'm trying to get to that point of getting rid of big tech.
I'm working towards it, but I'm working the other way. I'm making them ban me.
Couldn't like that. Well, they're making a huge mistake because the long-term effects of their actions are going to be very deleterious for them, I think, because another generation is just going to be like, I'm not getting on. Facebook won't really exist anyway in about 30 years.
Well, Facebook changed now.
I know, Meta
it's
or whatever.
Called
They're
Meta.
trying to rebrand.
Like, that's not just clearly, openly mocking people. Like, metadata.
Yeah.
Like, how much more obvious do they need to make this stuff?
I don't know. I'd be I think Zuckerberg is very sinister. He put $400 billion into this election to get freaking Cornholio elected. And those were all fraud boxes. So you could just, they knew that they needed a certain amount of votes and they could just pump those votes in those boxes. It's so obvious. Like the legal system, that's a whole nother issue. Nobody's looking into it. Like the citizens are looking into it. But I was obviously stolen. This is a totally fake president. It's really the first time in our history. So
here's the thing. All presidents are fake. All elections are stolen. And none of the presidents are legitimate. I don't think voting matters. It's all a show. I even think this past election, the only reason they did this was to keep the people in their camps. It's just to create radicals that are like, Trump won. No, Biden got 81 million votes. He's the most popular president ever. It's just to continue to create radicals. The people that don't give any credit to the voting system is like, we knew this was all a fraud a long time ago.
I would generally agree with you. I think probably at the foundation of this country, those were all proper elections, probably till the Civil War. And then they got more and more corrupt as time went by. Kennedy election was corrupt. Mm-hmm. They pumped votes into Chicago, I think in West Virginia. And I mean, we can get into Johnson and all these other characters, Bushes, but they've been.
Well, I mean, just look what they did to Ron Paul.
Oh yeah, look what they did to Bernie. In fact, they screwed Bernie. I mean, I don't care about Bernie, but I'm just saying. I know what happened. I know what happened. I get what happened.
Right. Yeah. No. And Bernie's still, at their feet begging them for crumbs. Which is just hilarious. They stole 2 nominations from him, and he's still just like, "Can I have a cookie, sir?" Anyway, let's get into the topic tonight, man, and let's start with maybe some background, because some people may not even know who Crowley is. So, who is Aleister Crowley?
Well, he was born in 1875, died in 1947. He came from a wealthy family. When his parents died, his inheritance, at least guesstimated maybe 20 years ago, was worth 20 million American dollars. So he came from money. He went to the best schools. He was brought up in an exclusive Brethren household, which was a subset of the Plymouth Brethren, which was founded by John Nelson Darby, who was kind of famous for making dispensationalism. So they were very, he remembers it, at least he retells it, as a very religious household. His dad was actually a pamphleteer who would take Christian pamphlets around, which was unusual because the family made money from beer and kind of selling sandwiches at pubs all throughout England. His dad died when he was 12. He was left in the care of his mom and his uncle. And he said that his uncle was kind of a tyrant. And he went to privileged schools. They call them public schools in England. They're really kind of private schools for Americans. And there, he went through the system kind of like Pink Floyd's The Wall, like abusive teachers, fighting, bullying and all this stuff. And he actually almost died at one of these Plymouth exclusive Brethren school in Cambridge. So he got out of that, went to private tutors. I think he went to other schools, Malvern, Tonbridge, which are well known in the UK, and passed the entrance exam into Cambridge and got into Cambridge. And really, while he was in Cambridge, he switched from kind of the Christian religion to occultism. He really became something of the occult and started writing a lot. And I mean, that's really where it started. So he got out. He actually left Cambridge without getting a degree. He said it was below him to get a degree. So he had kind of a snobby attitude, started writing poetry. Really what he said at the time were his 3 things that he was white hot interested in was poetry, mountain climbing, and the occult. So he had the money and time. He was definitely part of a class system, and he was in the upper class. So he never worked his whole life, really. He never had a real job, 9-to-5 job like somebody else did. Probably his 9-to-5 job was occultism and working as an intel agent for the UK government. Formerly, it was the Secret Intelligence Service, which became MI5 and MI6. So he's swept, but his occult career kind of came through groups at that time at the turn of the century. One was called the Golden Dawn, which was an aggregator of kind of wisdom of the West and the East, really in a magical fraternity. And he was in there with other well-known figures. So he absorbed all that information and kind of borrowed stuff from them, from people who were in that, then took all that stuff, had a lawsuit, came out, then really had what he called his most important event, which was when he was in England with his wife, Kelly. She said she was kind of like a receiving end for some message that said they're waiting for you. So he set up a temple in Cairo, and over the next 3 days, some being or entity he called Awaz dictated to him the Book of the Law. And that became kind of his foundational document. It's supposed to be like a received document. It was written in 3 parts, divided by 3 gods of the Egyptian pantheon. And really, Horus was really the most kind of vicious one, where he made these declarations about those of us who are in the number 11. I can't remember verbatim offhand, but then like, I'm going to rip the head, like peck the eyes out of Jesus and spit on your crapulous creeds. So it was really very satanic, very adversarial. And that was really the head. So then 1904, he keeps writing, traveling. He goes to Nepal and tries to ascend 2 tall mountains there. One is Chogori and the other is Kanchenjunga. And those are huge things. He gets kicked off the last one for being Crowley. So he let like 3 people die in an avalanche. He didn't get up to help them. And so that kind of ended his mountaineering career, ruined his reputation. And it's a kid writing all the time. Like, I would say he was really a literateur, maybe in the mold of some other people to this day who are constantly writing. So he was constantly putting out literature, poetry. So he had tons of poetry books. His first one was White Stains, a really kind of, for that time, pretty edgy kind of material. So he's writing them under pseudonyms to kind of make sure it was harder for people to ascertain who the author was, and publishing them in small publishing houses. 1904, he's 1910, he goes to Algeria. So he's constantly traveling. His ideal person was Richard Burton, who was kind of a 19th century explorer, writer, ethnographer. And Burton he was one of the early people who went on the Hajj, which is the mandatory pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina. So Burton was a Christian he was a Westerner who went on that in disguise. He also found it was the Mountains of the Moon, I think was the movie, but it was found, they were trying to find the foundation of the Nile River in Lake Victoria. So he was all over the place. So that was kind of model for Crowley, is this adventuresomeness, but also in the context of magic. So it's very strange because he's constantly moving, but he's constantly having these magical workings in different places or these magical events. So he basically comes to the United States on the Lusitania, I think in 1914, and works for British intelligence, undermining the German influence in the U.S. Once the U.S. gets into war, he writes in his autobiography, which he calls autohagiography, which is kind of like the biography of the saints. So he's constantly kind of making these dark jokes. But he writes in there, my work was done. So he comes back to England and then gets kicked out. There was always these there's not a legacy, but a repository of journalism writing about him. They're calling him all kinds of names and a disgrace. So he leaves there. He's going to France often. And he ends up in Italy. So he's in Italy at the time. He's actually records Mussolini's march on Rome with the black shirts. So he's there for 3 days in Rome following the fascists there. And that event was what inspired Hitler to do his putsch, also in 24. So it's kind of like a weird, interesting correlation. Crowley's life and Hitler are a little curious. There's curious overlaps. Crowley goes to a place he calls the Abbey. He creates the Abbey of Thelema, which is a magical fraternity in Sicily and Cefalù. And the remnants are still around today. It's still kind of a pilgrimage site for OTO or Crowley loving oddballs. He gets kicked out literally by Mussolini after one kid dies. His name was Raoul Loveday, and there's a lot of mystery about them. Really, Raoul was actually very sick. He had jumped off a building in England and landed on a wrought iron fence. So he had already punctured like his intestines and survived, and then came not exactly in the greatest of shape, and probably got enteritis. Like a lot of people got sick in Sicily at that time, just due to bad conditions. So that gets closed down. He goes back to France. He hangs out in France for a while, gets kicked out of France in 1928. And he's constantly going. That's the whole curious thing about Crowley, is that he's moving interjurisdictionally. So he's moving in between different countries. He goes back to the UK, gets either sent or somehow goes to Weimar, Germany, and is in Germany for 3 years at the same time Hitler comes to power. Like, very strange. So then Hitler comes to power, I think 33. Crowley's out of there 34, gets up back to Hastings, and eventually kind of settles, goes to London and ends up and settles in kind of a nicer boarding house, shared housing in Hastings, which is the very south part of London, and dies there in 1947. That's kind of like the overarching view of Crowley, like where he was. But you have to remember, during this time, he's constantly moving within the higher echelons or the higher classes and meeting people. And so I tried to really key into those observations of people who had met Crowley and what they thought about him, whether it was Hemingway or J.F.C. Fuller or some of these kind of well-known people, and some not well-known, but they all kind of, Somerset Maugham was one who actually wrote a book called The Magician that was based on Crowley. Crowley admitted it. So I tried to kind of focus in on that, but you have to kind of see he was writing books all the time. And he actually, I don't think that anybody, even his biographers, other biographers, and there's other ones out there other than me, but they haven't really collected the corpus of all of his journalistic writings, like all the stuff that he had written for papers and for Vanity Fair in the United States. So he was constantly writing. I mean, he said he was addicted to reading and writing, which I think is true. And he was really a master of the English language, and smart, very smart person. But, it gets darker with all of his stuff that he was involved in. He had these Scarlet Women. He found that these women were good magical partners. So he called them Scarlet Woman. He was the Beast. So he absorbed all of this terminology from Revelation, right? The book of Revelation. So he was he called himself To Megatherion in Latin, or the Great Beast 666. And so these women were the Scarlet Women because in the Revelation, there's the woman rides the beast, right? If you remember that part. So, I mean, and that's very important to understand because some of these movies after Crowley actually have his ritual, the woman rides the beast. But we can talk about Johnny Depp later. But so they had these Scarlet Women, and each one of the Scarlet Women was branded on their chest, like literally like you would brand a cow with Crowley's Mark of the Beast, which was a moon and kind of planetary symbols. And you can just type in Crowley's Mark of the Beast. So they all got literally branded, and then he would kind of like use them as energy centers and then move on to the next one. So I think in his lifetime, he had like 10 or 12 Scarlet Women, and then he would just discard them because they weren't worth anything for the great work. Like one of them he abandoned in France, and she became a prostitute. Like his treatment of other people was terrible, really. I mean, even his own kids and stuff, and his ex-wives. One of his children died. I think he said of one of his other girls, "Oh yeah, she'll make a great whore." Like, what a nice dad, you know. So that, I mean, yeah. So you can just get into different layers of Crowley: political Crowley, intelligence Crowley, occult Crowley. But I think really what he did and set him apart from other occultists, and why that he's still an important figure, is that he was smart, well-educated, and spent all his time developing this corpus that other people can use as a baseline or springboard for their occult work. So they almost all go through Crowley. There's been other occultists, Blavatsky, some of these women who I can't name offhand, and he had competitors too, but he seems to have outlasted them all with all of his kind of workings and examples and his venturism and the drugs and sex, a lot of drugs and sex, which he included into his ritual practices. That was one of the things that he kind of advanced was, and it's really not that much of an advance because you can go back to ancient Greek and probably the old Bible, where even the old Bible, they think that in some of the old temple rituals, they were using marijuana in the pagan rituals, and definitely drugs were involved in temple practices in Greece. So he kind of reoriented that into his kind of view, and then the sex magic became another part. And so I think that was what was attractive to Next Generation after he died in 1947. And I mean, he really was kind of a non-political figure, more of a cultural figure. He said, after Hitler was, I am, which is a play off of what Christ said in the temple in front of the Sanhedrin. And I write in my book, you can kind of see Hitler is almost somewhat similar in the sense the triumph of the strong over the weak. These are all, it's weird how Darwinism, and this is a whole other topic, how similar Darwinist ideas or ideology is similar to satanic ideology. You can actually kind of transpose them, and they're almost a carbon copy because, and that's a whole nother reason is why Darwin came up and just met these satanic ideas. Strong over the weak, kill off the weak. These things Crowley really did. Triumph of the will. So even Crowley's religion was Thelema. He called it Thelema. That's a Greek word for will. And if you take it through his gematria, that if you calculate that, then the value of the letters, they add up to 93. So Thelema and agape are will and love, they add up to 93. And then there's Hitler's like triumph of the will. And so he thought he could do everything through the power of the will, like Crowley. So you see that same kind of theme. It's a transposed against the Christian or maybe Judeo, in a larger sense, Judeo tradition, but even in the Lord's Prayer, do what thou, Crowley's is do what thou wilt, so individual will, and then it's God, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, right? So God's will. So you see that oppositional element within through the all occult and maybe in the Western religious tradition. But there's overlaps between Crowley and Hitler that are really apparent and obvious, and it's weird how they overcome. And there's actually kind of connections between occultists. This guy Ewers, who Crowley knew, it was within the Nazi environment, And there's kind of this cross-fertilization between him. J.F.C. Fuller, who was Crowley's follower, was one of 2 Englishmen to attend Hitler's 50th birthday, I think in 1939. And he was a big-time right-wing fascist. He had actually, I think they put him in jail in World War II for fascist sympathies. Like, he was one of those Englishmen who would have sold his country out to the Nazis. So it gets to a kind of broad, the larger cultural and historical element. Crowley is definitely around and making remarks about that. But like I said, that's why I think that he attained a kind of immortality just because of his intelligence, and the corpus of his work was original. And so that's why people go through. I mean, I've talked about the ONA. I wrote about the Order of Nine Angles. And there was a moment, they're clearly referencing Crowley and using him as something, as kind of a comparison of what they want. So they're looking at it, go, how can I improve on this? How can I change this? Sure. And so you see that a lot in a lot of like the modern esoteric tradition.
Yeah, why not go with something with a good foundation like that? I've heard that Timothy Leary was into Crowley's sex magic stuff, and he did a lot of experimentation with LSD and some of that stuff.
Right. So he actually thought there's a famous statement, and you can see it in my documentary, Children of the Beast, which is on Vimeo, where he says, I'm carrying on Crowley's tradition. I wish he was here to see what his ideas have wrought. He basically, I don't remember verbatim off of that, but he said that. I said that Crowley was in Algeria. Leary was in Algeria with another follower, another drug trafficker at Busada, which is where Crowley was with a guy by the name of Victor Newberg. And so there's a really good biography. I think it's by Higgs, who I've actually had on my show on William Ramsey Investigates, about his book on William Blake, which is another really fascinating character. But Higgs wrote a biography about Leary, and I use that a lot for my section in Children of the Beast about Leary, where Leary, says that, it's unmistakable that there's a synchronicity between my life and Crowley's. And he had Crowley's I Ching. So the I Ching are these occult reading sticks, kind of that come from, I think, China. And so Crowley had those sticks, and actually Leary had Crowley's sticks, and they lost them. And he had Crowley's tarot cards. Wow. So he was clearly very much aware. And it's very important because Leary was also a known member of the Illuminates of Thanateros, which is kind of post-Crowley chaos magic. And there's also a section of my book where he's hanging out. I think the Process Church of the Final Judgment admitted that Leary was either at a meeting or became a short-term member of that group, which is also another Crowley offshoot, because Crowley to Scientology to the Process Church. There's a clear ideological kind of genealogical tree straight to the Process Church.
Wow. There's so much to chew on there. So many different directions that we could go. Oddman, you got any questions, man? I'm just trying to soak this all in.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is, man. There's a couple of things I was kind of curious about, because you hear a lot of rumors about Crowley, and it's kind of hard to tell myth from the real deal. But, I'd heard or read that he had went through Freemasonry really quickly before he went into the, the OTO or the Thelema. No,
that's true.
Is that true?
Right. He has a OTO. I think it was either the Memphis or Mizraim rites, but there you can look online. The Masonic leader's name was John Yarker, Yarker, who's a well-known kind of Masonic guy. And so Crowley got there's a signed certificate of him passing through the grades or something like that. But I don't remember what grade. I thought it was Memphis and Mizraim, which is post-Masonic, in that one of those groups these groups are post-Masonic. So you're supposed to come through Masonry and then join the OTO. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the whole idea.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was true or not. You hear those rumors.
Oh, it's true. And he said that he made up this story. Well, he is very kind of a tall teller, told tall tales. And some people have even speculated that his whole story about receiving the Book of the Law may have just been complete fabrication of a talented writer who wanted to create something that would establishment at the apex of the occult world, right? So it's very fortunate for him if you want to attain the highest level for having some entity you call Satan later to dictate to you the Book of the Law. So that's open for speculation. But when one of his early trips, he went to go ascend a mountain in Mexico, and he said he met a 33-degree like Latino guy who bestowed upon him the 33rd degree, which nobody has really ever verified. So it's very fortunate for him. So,
very Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un. Is that the one that is like said that they recently landed on the sun and like he's.
Well, I mean, Crowley wrote his own myth. He said he was born with the phrenem linguae on his mouth, which is like some kind of sign on the east that you're sacred, and that he had a swastika on his chest, that he was born with a swastika on his chest. And you can read that in his book. So he's making up these kind of myths. Right. I mean, he may not be I would say that he was a very astute person who understood the power of myths in creating kind of a legacy about your character. I mean, maybe some people do it to themselves in smaller ways, but he was much more florid about it, like really deliberately creating. And how much of that is fake and not is known. The whole thing about the Book of the Law is odd because this entity was Aiwass, but he's always praying to Aiwass. He always sees Aiwass in the rocks, and he prays to Aiwass for knowledge. So it's kind of curious, like how much of this stuff he's really has. He said he had all kinds of psychic abilities. He was able to astrally travel. He would do these workings where he'd receive knowledge. And one of the more curious things about Crowley that really can't be explained but ties into kind of modern ufology is that when he did the Malamantra working, he said he talked to some entity he called Lam, which is an honorific. It's like similar to Lama in Tibet. But he drew it, and it looks exactly like a gray alien, and it's in his equinox. It's in his encyclopedia. So it's like, how did somebody back then predict or lay the foundation to the modern UFO phenomena, the gray alien phenomena that's been picked up or promoted by like Whitley Strieber and all these other characters? It's really something else.
Well, maybe that's where it came from. Originally is it, somebody saw that and then kind of just played off of that. Now, I am the kind of person that believes that astral projection and all of this stuff is possible, that things can be fed through you. I mean, I haven't written much, but I have written enough to know that sometimes stuff just flows out of you. And it's almost like you're just the vessel for the words. So I know enough to know that. And then as far as mind speak and all of that stuff, I think this stuff can happen. Now, whether Crowley just said that so he could, he obviously knew about energy. So if he was doing that just to get energy, it works either way, whether it's made up or not.
Right. He was definitely trying to get energy. He said after some of his workings, he could stay up for 2 days writing or something. And some of these things would literally flow out. He was very close to an automatic writer, if not a flat out automatic writer, because he said he never really went back. He wasn't that type of writer that reread anything and changed anything. So you almost see no editing on his writing or his works. There's some here and there, or errata and things like that, but you almost never see. Like, I definitely look over my own writing and go, I could do better here, rewrite this. But I don't know if Crowley really ever did that.
Sometimes it flows out of you to the point where you have to go back because you think you're making sense when you're writing it down. And then you look back and you're like, wait, none of that made any sense at all. I've got to reword this.
Right.
So let me touch on something you said before about the number 93. And that'll kind of give us our pivot point. You said 93 was an important number, and there are of Crowley's, and there are some numbers that tie that to 9/11. And that's what I'm really interested in, is his ties to 9/11, because it was Flight 93 that was one of the flights in 9/11. And if you take the two flights that hit the towers and add them together and divide them by 2, you get 93.
Right. Well, what was it? 175 or something? I don't know.
It's like the two planes that hit the towers are like Flight 1 something.
175 and 11.
And 111.
And then there's 77, 11, 93, right?
Yeah.
They're all tied to Crowley. That was really the point of my first book, Prophet of Evil, which I wrote in 2010. there was another book that came over after that pretty interesting. I mean, we can talk about that, but my book really, that's why I had to have a proper biography of Crowley that wasn't written, and that's a significant part of that book, that wasn't written by a Crowley devotee, right? I am not a Christian. I am a Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So I'm writing it from that kind of moral perspective, whereas some of these other people are writing it from Crowley being a great liberator of humanity. But that's why I had to lay the background for people to understand 9/11. So you went through these steps of Crowley, the Book of the Law, where the 11s are there, where in the Golden Dawn, one of the founders is writing about numbers and their power, and 11 is a number of desolation and death, right? So I include that in Prophet of Evil. And also the whole thing about 77, which is Liber Oz, which corresponds to 77 and the 77 names of Satan, which are in the Satanic Bible by Sandor LaVey. So you see that number is very important in other parts of the occult. And then 93, like I said, is part of Gematria. And even Crowley kind of, and some of his friends shorthand their like things. It's a shorthand for love under will, love under law, right? So will, law, and they just write 93, 93. So you see Jimmy Page write like that, Crowley write like that. So those were very important numbers to understanding Crowley even before 9/11. So it's an important part of Thelema. And then you come to 9/11, and you have two esoterically designed buildings, which are an 11 in the skyline. And the first plane that it happens on September 11th, 2001. The first plane to hit the tower is an 11. And then the 175, which is a ritual Crowley wrote about which God do you adore. And it's an adoration of like the devil is very kind of a common parlance usage of that term adore in the occult. You can hear it in like Thin Lizzy songs and things like that. Like you have to adore me. Then, you have 93 and 77 hit the Pentagon. So you can see that the ritualization of the event, the occultization, and the way that those things are put together, almost like somebody would be doing a ritual in a tomb or something where they're putting things together, artifacts, and doing like Crowley's rituals involved ornate sets, bells, candles, blood. You do the step by step by step by step, right? And so you can see that in the event of 9/11, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy named David Weiss on recently, and we talked about 9/11 and all the symbolism that happened there. And he did super deep dives on 9/11 that I haven't done because you don't have to look very far to realize it's all the narrative's BS.
Right. Dave Weiss, the flat earther?
Yes, sir. Right. Yeah, from Deep in the Rabbit Hole podcast originally. And his first, he dove deep into 9/11. And that's what I had him on for the last episode was 9/11. And, their symbolism is everywhere in 9/11. And it goes back. I mean, they were telling us about 9/11 well before 9/11 happened. So,
right, no doubt.
How do you think Crowley is, other than just numerology, do you think he was tied into like the origins of it, like the beginning of it? Because I know maybe there was like comic books and certain things that were keying towards 9/11 in the mid-century.
Right. Well, there were hints of it. I mean, clearly that's an important date probably to occultists because it's a kind of a time meridian on a new millennium. So I would say that would be a significant point. But I would say that the ideas might have been around. I've seen no evidence of anything, but definitely there's tons of foreshadowing in films. And I mean, even George Bush foreshadowed it when he gave his famous speech on September 11, 1990, right? 11 years to the date. So he's, I think, foreshadowing that very clearly something's going to happen. So whether that goes back, there's nothing in Crowley that I've read. I've read a lot of Crowley. I haven't read all this stuff, but I've read most of his major works, and there really isn't anything in there that foreshadows 9/11, 2001.
So you think
there's tons of stuff. Yeah, there's tons. If you look at Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke's 2001, that foreshadows it. So that's one. You can put in Fight Club, a lot of major media movies and stuff like that It's there.
So you think these are just
on.
like Crowley followers that are just kind of putting his little signature on everything?
Well, I think that he's probably seeded his ideas, which was his intent, as kind of like a priest to the princes. He seeded his ideas through the elite, global, at least in the States, in my opinion, and probably the UK and certain parts of Europe. And so his ideas and his way of looking at things, the slave shall serve. He believed in the best system was feudalism, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of his outlook. So you see that ideology, and you can see it in my book if you read Prophet of People. And watch out for other books who talk about 9/11, because they will take the real truth about, in my opinion, take the truth of Crowley out. I mean, there's people promoting other books that really are mind-raping people. I won't mention their names, but it's a freaking disgrace for people to mention some of these other books. I wrote the original stuff in 2010. That's all can be verified with pinpoint accuracy. So you got to watch out for some of the stuff to come after, and you got to wonder why they're twisting things and omitting things. Like Orwell said, omission is the greatest form of lie. So you got to really be careful. But as far as Crowley's impact, there's secret libraries. Occultists have libraries. A lot of people want to stay in power if you're an elite. So being a Crowleyite or being influenced by Crowley is not that far of a stretch. So I whether like they are overt. I mean, you can talk about. You can talk about the Bush family, Skull and Bones, secret libraries, ritual magic, initiation, all that stuff. It all kind of, you can see that continuum goes all the way through.
Yeah, and with the sex magic stuff, that ties in, the elite pedophile ring. So it's all this overlapping. Now, whether they're all, created from the same thing, they definitely have like this Venn diagram where they all intersect together.
I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And you can talk about, I think, what's that witch's name? It's Abramovich. She knows about Crowley. So she does certain things with Crowley that are similar to other rituals that are common in the continuum of occult practices, whether it's in the more recent modern history or stuff that used to come back out of old myths and old kind of historical knowledge from the Druids or ancient Greece. So, and just like Crowley's borrowing and taking all that stuff and putting it together, and like he influenced Wicca, so he's influencing Gardnerian Wicca, and very much so. He was writing to Gardner. They met, and I proved that in the Children of the Beast. He actually gave Gardner his OTO kind of title, and you can see Crowley's signature on that. So you can see that they're bringing stuff in and also pushing forward through to the present, whether it's through Gardner, Kenneth Anger, or Leary, Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, so Parsons. So I don't know how his ideas got seeded into 9/11, but they're there.
Right. Regardless, they're there. And his, for lack of a better term, his followers are everywhere. I mean, he's been this very influential guy for these occultists. Like he's a really big key figure. And do you think it's because he just did so much writing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was what he expanded upon that gave people their ideas of liberation, which is like his idea was freedom, right? So his idea was freedom from all strictures or reservations. So I think that was his philosophical outlook. So somebody in hard rock or, in certain environments that, or being an elitist with tons of money, that's an attractive kind of thing. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, right? 11 letters, 11 syllables. So you see that 11 theme in Crowley. And so I think that's really was his thing. Sex, drugs, do what thou wilt, freedom. So for people who may have come like Crowley from a very rigid background, that next step into freedom for some of these people who may have grown up in Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that, this is the opposite swing of the pendulum is into Crowleyism.
Well, and it's freedom for the elites, not for everybody. because he was a feudalist.
No, right. Well,
So,
no doubt. And I mean, you
yeah.
can get into kind of a Christian perspective. They probably are totally slaves to sin. Like Crowley was a slave to heroin and probably doing his things. I don't think he could ever repent. So he was really locked into that worldview all the way till his death in 47.
Yeah, it's I like to investigate these occultists because I just don't understand the mentality of it, right? Like what makes someone this way? And it seems like they're all, well-to-do people, like Oddman and I were talking about before you came in. Like all of these people came from money, whether it's Leary or Crowley or Marx, they all came from high-end families. Maybe this is it. The old saying, the idle hands are the devil's playthings. So it's these rich people that don't have to have jobs or anything. And then, they get corrupted because they're not busy doing something else.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what led Crowley. He didn't even know. He self-admitted. I just don't know. I just went that route. But I think that, the presumption of occultism is to get power, right? So if you want power and you want to be above, certain rules and societal rules, that's your place. So as far as like the moneyed ones, yeah, I mean, it's like Christ said, if you follow me, give away all of your everything you own and follow me. And there's some of those people like, no, I'm not giving up anything to follow you. So having all that money almost is kind of a religion in itself, the religion of the wealthy, the religion of the elite. I mean, imagine what it's like growing up as a Rockefeller, right? David Rockefeller and Nelson Rockefeller heavily involved in creating the Twin Towers. They used to be kind of colloquially nicknamed Nelson and David after Nelson and David Rockefeller. Incidentally, Nelson almost became president. This is a much forgotten thing, but Squeaky Fromm of the Manson factory supposedly took a shot at Gerald Ford, missed him by like 2 inches. And if he died, Nelson would have been president.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's interesting. Go look at that story. That's almost never talked about.
No.
But that's another weird connection to Manson, who's influenced by the process. Definitely, he's actually, Manson said, Robert de Grimston and I are one, which is like very telling. And so you can see all the family ideas, mind control, Scientology in the Manson family. That's like the great mystery. That's really the great mystery of Manson that they never quite figured out because they never got into the Scientology of it. When looking at him, they knew that he was a Scientologist, but they never got the calculation or the kind of the equation that he put those people into his total control, those women, even after he got arrested. So I think that was really one of the mysteries of Manson, and still is kind of why they're curious about him. But yeah, part of the Manson family would have had a huge impact upon this country if Gerald Ford got shot in the head.
Wow.
Yeah, go look it up. You can probably just look it up on Wikipedia right now.
That makes me wonder if Manson was maybe part of the MK Ultra program.
Well, yeah, you got to read that book by Tom O'Neill. I've interviewed Tom O'Neill about that book, about Manson and his tie-ins to MK Ultra and Jolly and West and all these characters. Like there's known times that he should have been arrested for stealing cars where he did not go to jail. So something was going on. And there was all kinds of weird. It was Operation Chaos is the name of the book.
Right.
And actually it ties into another interview I did, an excellent book, which I could not recommend more, which is called The Revolution's End by Brad Schreiber. You got to interview this guy. If you can get him on the show, it's probably one of the greatest MK Ultra, PSYOP, mind control, government operation book you could read. It's really great. I love that book. I got to call Brad. But I love reading that book. I still remember it because it took apart the whole story of the Symbionese Liberation Army as an actual, man-made, independent operation. It was just a part of this Operation Chaos, which was run supposedly by James Jesus Angleton out of the CIA. And there were different little subparts, just like MK Ultra. So you've got, you have to think of like a puppeteer to understand this. You've got him puppeteering at around the same time. Well, I think it was 72 was the Symbionese Liberation Army. And Manson was 69. But you got somebody puppeteering these characters out of jails in California that had massive cultural impacts. And no, that book is great. Revolution's End by Brad Schreiber.
Revolution's End. Yeah, I'm writing that down.
He's a really good interview too. But yeah, this is a great book. Honestly, everybody should read that book. It's because it's what's happening now. It's the same thing that happened at this January 6th thing, where you've got government agents creating cultural events. You got to get inside the freaking Capitol. Get in the Capitol.
Well, and the dude,
the
horned guy,
the
horned guy got on the Senate floor and said some magical ritual.
Yeah, he was a chaos magician.
That dude,
it was some weird shit. Stuff happened in that too, because there was this Nazi girl who stole. I don't think they found her yet, but she stole Pelosi's laptop.
So there's like a Nazi.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a Nazi girl, a chaos magician. And feds just, I think that the feds really instigated that Capitol. And surprisingly, I mean, people say it was violent and terrifying, but considering how many people were in there wasn't that much property lost. There was definitely trespassing, but I think that the left made a lot more for their own political benefit, made a lot more out of it.
Oh, of course. That January 6th thing was nothing more than a guided tour and a couple rabble rousers. It wasn't this thing that was this deadly event. The only person that died was some unarmed woman that got shot by a Capitol cop. Right. There wasn't any violence. That nobody was armed, except for the Capitol Police.
They made more out of it. I mean, it should be like a real warning call, because they're looking for any excuse to put you into jail for a long period of time and throw away the key. Because honestly, there's a lot different ways they could have handled that, but putting these people in jail, they're giving them the Assange treatment, where part of the torture and punishment is to just delay the trial and keep you in limbo. So it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
And,
I don't think what they did was right either, though. They shouldn't have gone in the Capitol. But
the doors were open for them.
Well, I agree with that, but you have to have proportionality to the crime, and so trespassing is what they should have got. What's the if I trespassed at Target or something, what would happen to me?
Like a $200 ticket.
Something. I would have to come back to the judge. He would give me community service and a fine, and it would go on my record. Right. Maybe. I mean, they wouldn't say you were sitting in wait with a gun trying to do a felony. Right? Trespassing typically isn't a felony. No. Anyway, that's a whole side story. But I think it ties in. I do think, we kind of got off track, but I do think Brad Schreiber's book is really instructive for anybody to see how the federal government can get involved in cultural defense and shape them and use things to their own benefit. And one of the points Brad makes out, which is really interesting, is that Cinque, I forgot his real name, but the guy who was the head was African-American, but all of his followers were well-meaning kind of liberals, activists, and they were all white. So all the African-American guys sniffed out Cinque as like, yeah, there's something wrong with this guy. He just does, their innate sense, their sixth sense kind of sense that there was something wrong. And there is something wrong with Cinque, because one of the first acts that they did was to kill a black school administrator, which is another very strange thing. You got to read the whole book. It's really a brilliant story. And I don't think it's really that covered anymore. And it should really be covered in by parapolitical researchers as a very important kind of benchmark or flat, place where people can kind of get a broader understanding of things that can happen.
Yeah, I love it, man. I'll definitely check that out and read the book and probably have him on the show because
or O'Neill too. That's the whole thing about O'Neill too, is the Operation Chaos part of it. But he pulled out stuff that was really remarkable. I actually interviewed him before he got on Joe Rogan, so I beat kind of a much bigger podcast of the bunch, but he proved a lot of stuff that they could actually create a mind control assassin. So the real challenge was to cover it up, was to make sure nobody thought that they could really do it when they could.
Oh yeah, I think they're capable of doing a lot of things, and maybe it is this magic, that Crowley believed in, or maybe it's just energy. You can call magic anything magic that you just don't understand, basically. Anything that you can't comprehend could be labeled with magic, and there might be some other explanation. But
well, what did Arthur C. Clarke? What's his third rule? any action of sufficiently high technology is indistinguishable from magic.
It's indistinguishable from magic. Yep. I mean, it's just a weird place where all these people are controlling the world, and I think they're just casting these spells. I mean, they get on the TVs and stuff, and it's called broadcasting. Like broadly casting spells. Like, and letters grouped together is called spelling. So, these things matter.
Programming.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Programming.
Yeah, programming. Yeah, that's scary. Yeah. Look at intelligence Here's another one, intelligence operation. It's the same word that's used in magic.
Yep.
We're going to create a magical operation. We're going to do an operation.
Well, corporation is corpse oration, the speaking dead.
Right.
Odd man, you got any final notes here, man? Like, my head is kind of spinning, so we're gonna have you back on, William. Like, this Crowley stuff is stuff that I'm just kind of scratching the surface of, and geez, finding out that his followers and his thumbprint is on everything. It's on a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
So
yeah, I mean, you can read Children of the Beast, and it goes into all that stuff. Kenneth Anger, whose sidekick, who was supposed to play Lucifer in Lucifer Rising, was Bobby Beausoleil, who was Manson's sidekick. That's one thing that's always left out in all those things, right? They always forget the connection. And that's really the presumption, and really one of the shortcomings of a lot of journalists is that it's not fashionable to talk about the occult when there's so much occultism. That's the real problem. It's not fashionable or not intellectually, it's not an intellectual, supposedly intellectually rigorous. And there's a whole other set of reasons for that. But it is interesting that I will go over these books about Manson, and they just leave out the whole Beausoleil Anger connection, and then Anger to Jimmy Page and all these other, and Crowley, both collecting Crowley material. And that's just massive part of the culture. It's just off the charts.
And the links are what matter.
Right. I agree.
You're never going to find out the full picture if you don't start connecting dots.
I wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's bad. So, but I mean, you can go on. I mean, I've written the books about Abomination, which is the West Memphis 3, which the involvement of Crowley in the occultism goes through the entire case and is usually left out. So that's really what drew me to that true crime thing. And that got me in a lot of grief. So that was interesting. And then I just wrote another book called Global Death Cult, Order of Nine Angles, Adam Waffen and the Slaughter of the Innocents. That came out in May, and I just updated it last week. So I put in another 25. It's actually interesting things have just happened recently. Like this guy, Daniel Hussein, who was at the Become a Living God forum that's run by E.A. Koetting, who's a Satanist, at a park, and really slaughtered them, stabbed one like 24 or 25 times. He made a blood pact with some demon, and he wanted to win the lottery. So now he has the name in the UK as the lottery killer. And just yesterday, YouTube took down E.A. Koetting's YouTube channel with 80,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So that kind of tied into my book too. And that's really what it is these ideas are now pervading the earth. It really is popping up all over Russia, Nordic countries, UK, US, Canada, places unknown, maybe because I don't speak other languages. But it's really something to watch out for, because you get a lot of naive, unseasoned young Spurgs or Asperger types, and they seem to really be online often and seem to really like this kind of underground stuff, and they get in trouble. And there was killings here in California, 2 in Virginia, Tampa. So I think you're going to hear a lot more of these kind of satanic right-wingers and their misdeeds much more in the near and later future.
Yeah.
Because here's why I know, because when I published my book in May, so much happened in like 5 months. I had to add another 25, 30 pages.
Oh, shit.
And they found
we're on an escalated timeline.
Yeah, like, something's happening. Accelerating, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that these groups wanted to accelerate, but they actually just, like I think in August, they exposed one of these occult groups. The lead guy took 140,000 from the FBI as a confidential informant. And so he was a tough guy to know if you were in the right-wing community, because I think that a lot of his, according to the court documents, a lot of his statements got a lot of people put in jail.
Yeah, and they're trying to put a cap on that stuff. I mean, they're scrambling. These global elite occultists.
Oh yeah,
I think they're just scrambling. Their power is slipping out of their hands. They're just scrambling to try to pick up the pieces of it and hold it together. And it's just, I don't think it's going to last very long, and it's all going to come crashing down.
As long as they can control the vote, everything's fine. So we'll see what happens in Virginia. What, tomorrow? Or is it on the 3rd, right? So we'll see if they can really rip that vote off. I think that here in California, Newsom definitely. I think they just rigged that whole thing too.
Oh,
it was
of course they did.
Disgrace.
Larry Elder should have won. I mean, he was such a threat that they were having him attacked.
Right, he was the black face of white supremacy, right?
right.
No, that's really what
that's
they said.
They called him. Yeah, this self-made black man.
Yeah,
that promotes
talk
freedom.
Show host, yeah,
that promotes freedom. Just freedom.
Well, I guess that rhetoric works. You can see some of the earlier polls of the Californians and how many people want to recall and how many people didn't. And like 2/3 of the state said recall, and then it inverted during the election. So why is there that huge discrepancy between? It's
classic inversion.
I think actually it's but I think actually what they're doing, it's a much more profound psychological thing, whereas they want you to give up. So they want to put it in your face, and then and I think that's the point of a lot of corporate propaganda. They know they're lying. They know they're pieces of trash, but they just keep doing it because they want to beat you down. The best thing you could do is ignore all of that. You shouldn't even watch any corporate media, Fox, MSNBC. You shouldn't even comment on it. And the reason why is because you're giving them power and you're promoting their lies like they're something that should be talked to. The people in the corporate media should be treated like a crazy lady who talks to a shampoo bottle and pushes all of her belongings around in a shopping cart. It doesn't matter. You should not give them one iota of power. It's total crap. And their stuff that they've promoted through Fauci, they have literally been involved, in my opinion, mass murder, because there were other solutions to this problem. They promoted a solution that doesn't really work that great. And they probably could have used therapeutics from the beginning. So, I mean, I think Pfizer just announced $93 billion in profit. So I do think they're doing really
93.
Well. Yeah, a month ago
93.
It was like, $93 million worth of profit.
Billion.
93 billion, but still 93.
Right. So I mean, I don't know, man. You got to wonder. It makes you wonder.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I know it. I think all three of us know that this is all BS, and it's just these whack job occult pedophiles that are controlling everything. That and what I keep telling people is at the most innocent. At the very most innocent of all of this, it's just greedy oligarchs hungry for money and power. And that's as innocent as it gets. Are they devil-worshipping Satanist occult followers? Who knows? But what I can prove is that they are greedy oligarchs hungry for money. And that's real easy to tell.
I think in their special clubs and in their communication, they've realized that they're going to they're trying to create a new kind of feudal society, neo-feudalism, and they're trying to divide the spoils.
Yes.
So who's going to be there forever? Because I think it's very important when George Bush said, for ourselves and future generations, right? So he's using a two kind of tiered word or two dual meaning. But I think when he says that, he's saying about his people and their kids will be the ones holding the levers of power forever.
Of course.
Like that's really what it is.
I think it is an ushering in of a new feudal system of serfs.
Yeah, so I think
lords.
that's it. I mean, go look at all the facts. Look at the person in debt. Look at the Squid Game. That's why it's so important, because the average person can't get out of debt, and $500 of extra charges. I think it's like 40% of the American populace cannot stand. That means we failed. We failed. The propaganda is what's holding you all together, or holding us all together.
Yeah, it's
and myself included.
Less than 15% of Americans have $1,500 in savings for an emergency. Less than 15%.
It's nothing. They've won. The bad guys have already won. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming. I know you're short on time and you're a busy man. Odd Man, you got any final words? I know you wanted to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to mention there is we were talking about links. I'll just mention this quickly. I clicked off of it, but there is this organization that's run by, I believe, the Rothschilds. It's called the Academy of Achievement. And I just happened to run up on one of their websites, and I noticed that there are all these prominent people. So you've got Lord Rothschild. I saw General Petraeus. But one of the interesting things is Jimmy Page is there almost every year for the last few years.
Wow.
We've got Judge Gorsuch, I believe is his name. I've seen, I think Sotomayor might have been there this year. But also, I've seen pictures of Abramovich with Lord Rothschild. There's one or two pics of them together.
I think I've seen that too, in front of like a devil painting or something like that. Yeah.
So we're talking.
So she's networked.
Yeah. So we're talking about links, and I think that's kind of odd that you've got two Crowleyites there, and Page and Abramovich with Lord Rothschild.
Right. I have a picture in Children of the Beast of a page with Crowley's layman right on the front, right? So that's kind of like circle with the dove into the chalice, symbolizing sex magic, right? Mm-hmm. The dove is.
Why do people have to keep ruining my childhood music? Like, this is like 3 podcasts in a row where I'm like, stop ruining the music that I listen to.
Yeah, well, Page actually, one of the interesting things about Page is he went back to Egypt in 2004 to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the receipt of the Book of the Law. So he was there as like a celebration. Yeah, and that's also in my book. You can see
and all Led Zeppelin. I mean, that's we could fill a whole podcast just on Led
Zeppelin. Is a symbol of Satan falling from heaven, right? Burning Satan down. So
crazy. Well, William, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, and all of that.
You can get my books at WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com. I have 5 videos, 2 on the smiley face killers, 2 on Crowley, 9/11, and Children of the Beast, and then one called Occult Hollywood that kind of traces Crowley's influence in Hollywood. So you can find those on Vimeo. My books are on Amazon, my website, and then my podcast is in the top 1.5% of podcasts in the world. It's William Ramsey Investigates. I kind of cover a lot of different subjects: true crime, history, and then what else is it? My Patreon is William Ramsey Investigates. I've been posting a lot of interesting stuff you would find interesting there. Some of the secret, there's people around today who are doing commentary who are pretty close to some neo-Nazi stuff. So I posted some stuff there. So I'm still kind of researching, but I'm really focusing on my podcast, kind of getting some information out, some evergreen kind of discussion. So anyway, I got to run, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks for coming, man.
All right. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Later.
All right.
All right, Odd Man. How about that, dude?
Wow. Dude,
my brain is just kind of scrambled. NY said that we were going to have to kind of lead him on, man. And that dude just went.
Right.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything, man, because I was just so in awe, and I was like, well, I'm not going to top him, so I just want to kind of soak this information in,
Yeah, that's all. That was just a sponge, just like, yep, give it to me. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
I love it. And I mean, we just blew through an hour.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that went by super fast. So I'm going to have to do part 2 if you want to join me for part 2, because I want to kind of dig into Crowley's links to, the Hollywood pedophile ring, and, possibly even Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk about the smiley face killers at some point in time, which he's done a lot of work on. That's the good thing about William Ramsey, man. We could do anything with that guy.
Right.
That dude's fantastic. How did I not know about this dude until recently? This guy's awesome.
I know, man. It was funny we were talking about, it occurred to me that Crowley is kind of like, I guess we could ask NY about this too, but I think just from what I've read and stuff, he's almost like the meeting point that almost all occultists kind of meet at. Almost all of them like Crowley. And that's pretty amazing because, if there were these big time conspiracies, that would be one huge thing that these powerful magicians would have in common is their love for Crowley. And it might be clues that we could see like 9/11 and the numbers and different things like that would kind of show us that, hey, there's something else going on here.
Yeah. I mean, all you got to do is start looking, and the links, it's all right there.
Yeah.
I mean, the numerology, the symbolism, I mean, it all just leaves this trail of breadcrumbs that's so easy to follow, yet nobody wants to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like my son's got this doctor that I've been butting heads with, but it got to the point to where I got contacted by the CEO of the hospital that this doctor works for. And so I've been trying to red pill this doctor, and he's either full of shit or he's just protecting his wealth by turning a blind eye. But I tried to tell him, I sent him a podcast and some stuff to look into, and he was like, well, this says that, you know, everything's being controlled by these devil worshippers. And I was like, dude, that's just that can be just a term for really evil people. And I said, it's not a secret. There's powerful people that are Luciferians and, you know, occult members. And this isn't some crazy wild conspiracy theory. You know, these people are openly Freemasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, so it's not a big stretch that there's evil people doing evil things in power.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy how naive some really intelligent people can be on that kind of subject. Because, man, this has been going on since the dawn of time, you know, and people just, I don't know, man. It's like they can't allow themselves to think about it, because if they do, they know it will probably send them down a path where they won't be able to sleep at night, you know, kind of like me sometimes, you know, but like,
well, it also is it's a pride mechanism, right? It's pride and ego, because if they admit that they've been fooled, especially when you're a doctor, then in order to change your mind, you have to choke down some very serious stuff where you have to go, I have been complacent in very, very bad things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at least complacent in it.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I have been firsthand involved in the harm of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a doctor, that's not somewhere they want to be. So they're just going to double down on their stupid crap and just keep continuing to believe they're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in the face of all of the statistics pointing to the fact that they're not doing it. You know, I told this doctor, like, dude, you keep saying that you've studied and you've done all this stuff, but what you don't want to acknowledge is that mistakes made by your group is the third leading cause of death. Like, you don't want to address that little thing. Third leading cause. Like, you make the podium, dude. You get a bronze medal.
Right.
You're up there with heart disease, bro.
It's the truth, man. And some people should not be in the medical field, just like any other, you know, industry. There's people that should not be working in that industry. And that's a big deal, because they're taking care of people's health, and sometimes people's lives are on the line. And if all they can do is shove medicine in your face on behalf of big pharma, that's not helping you. Sometimes it's masking the issue. Sometimes it's even making things worse in the long run, you know?
For sure. I mean, the pharmaceutical drugs, Oxycontin, vaccines, these are all horrible for your system, not to mention the foods we eat and just the garbage that is just constantly being pumped into our bodies, you know, and then they're spraying us constantly. We've got fluoride in our water system. Like we've got this onslaught constantly by these gross occult assholes that are controlling everything. And, you know, we live these toxic lives and we're surprised everybody's sick and dying.
Right.
Like, and what to go to the occult thing, like, maybe this is all just a big sacrifice ritual. You know,
could be,
maybe
man.
This is just a mass sacrifice ritual to bring on whatever they're trying to bring on, or try to stop something that's coming.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a religious person, if you think Christ is coming, if we're in the end times, maybe this is them trying to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or, you know, what I've been thinking about lately is God cast the fallen into the abyss for 1,000 years, right? So he cast them into the abyss for 1,000 years. Maybe we're coming up on the end of that, and they're trying to open the abyss to bring all of those fallen out into our world, because, you know, these people want to take humans as hosts because they have been, their ability to have a body has been taken from them, but they desperately want a body.
Right.
And so that's when you sell your soul to the devil, like a lot of songs say, and that's how you get power or celebrity or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole nother podcast too about that madness. But, something crazy is happening.
Yeah, definitely, man. You can feel it. You can see it. I mean, it's like you can see it more and more. It's like I can take 2 or 3 days and just not pay attention to any social media. And then I tune back in and it's like, it's even crazier than it was. And it's like, wow, how can, you wonder how regular people can't see that this is not a normal time. This is not.
Right. It has to be a spell.
Yeah.
It has to be a spell. They're just under a spell. I work, by myself most of the time, but every now and again I get the chance to meet one of my clients. And this morning I had that chance, and this dude was a freedom loving guy, man. And I got him to listen to my podcast, and some of the stuff he said, it's like, all right, man, like there are some people out there that still can think. It's not just people like you and me. There's some regular people that work, in the tech industry, and they get it. Mm-hmm. They're just not as vocal as us. So,
right.
Maybe the silent minority is about to not be the silent minority. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, man. I think you're right. There's a lot of people out there that just need a little bit of a push, or maybe they just need to hear some of these ideas that maybe they've already thought about and never heard anybody else talk about. And if they just hear your show or my show or NY's show or somebody else's show, it's like, I can identify with that, and I know, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And there's certain things, we just drop these breadcrumbs. These things should make you start to scratch your head a little bit and go,
right.
This doesn't make sense. I think I'm coming across more people that are like that are kind of questioning what's going on and saying this stuff doesn't make sense. I'm coming across less and less people that are just diehard into the narrative.
Yeah.
So, it depends on where you go too.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm in Austin basically, and man, masks are still really prevalent here, which is crazy. And I just, every now and again, I'll walk in somewhere and I'll see somebody like, oh, cool. And they take their mask off. And it's just like, dude, just why are you waiting for me to do it?
Right.
Just don't wear one.
Yeah.
Like,
I know, man.
They're not mandatory. Like, just wear one. Just go without one.
It feels wonderful.
Even when they were. Yeah, even when they were mandatory, I wasn't wearing one.
Right. Exactly.
You can tell me to leave if you want.
Right.
But I'm literally never going to come back.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting any of my money ever. But anyway, brother, I'm going to get back to the family.
Yeah, man.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, just probably the best place is _the_odd_man_out on Twitter or Instagram. And I've actually been more active on Gab, believe it or not, because Twitter's just, I don't know, man. I'm over it. and Gab is full of like a lot of Trumpers first, but I'm noticing there's a change happening on there where people are really starting to kind of see through things. So I'm hoping that might be a decent outlet for people like us in the future, because it's, before it was just nothing but Trump lovers.
Yeah, I have to check out Gab. And man, the Trump lovers, there's two factions in the Trump lover world. It's the people that are starting to get mad that Trump didn't become the dude that they thought he was, and it's the people that are still like, man, he's going to take back over in 2024.
Right.
Then he's really going to start cracking heads. And I'm just like, God, your faction of the Trump lovers, y'all are dumber than liberals. Y'all are worse than damn liberals, because you're still just licking the boots.
Yeah.
Like, good God, how do you still trust this dude at this point in time? Like, we're where we are now because of Trump.
Right. That's what I tell people, man. I'm like, if we hadn't had a Trump, we wouldn't have a Biden in this situation that we have right now. You couldn't have had one without the other. It's like symbiotic relationship there.
Yeah, we're weird how that happens, how each president plays off the last one.
Right.
Or each president sets up the next one.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's like, okay, let me reshuffle the deck for you. Let me pull all the aces where they're going to get into your hands, and, Like, and nobody realizes it. I mean, Biden would never have been able to do anything without the executive, without the state of emergency, without Operation Warp Speed, you know, without all of this stuff that Trump did. Biden wouldn't have been able to do what he's doing.
No. And I saw that at least, I think it was whatever that guy's name is that runs Gab, Andrew Torba or something like that. Anyway, he posted the other day that whatever Trump's new social media site is, I guess it launched this week or last week, he's actually banning Gab links and other conservative links on that platform. And he's using the Google servers for his social media. So,
oh, jeez. Like, as soon as I heard he was coming out with his own platform, I was just like, if you don't realize this is a limited hangout psyop, you get what you get. You get what you deserve. You're too stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you're officially too dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't mind jumping on there just to troll the shit out of people, but
right.
You know, like, what's the point?
Yeah, and I couldn't, you know, like, even before he got kicked off of Twitter, I was like, why doesn't he go to one of these other sites that's more conservative, right-leaning, and he can take thousands of people with him and then actually create real competition for Twitter? But no, he didn't want to do that. So,
of course not. Can't mess with his pals at Twitter,
right?
You know, you know, the whole idea that he, you know, is upset that he's not on Twitter. It's all a show. Yeah. This is all a show. But on that note, man, thank you for coming along for this ride with William Ramsey, man. And I'm going to email him either tonight or tomorrow and let him know we got to do part 2. And you're going to have to join us for that one too, man. This stuff's fun. I like to just consume it.
Awesome, man. I loved it. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you,
of course, brother. Anytime, man. Enjoy the rest of your night, man. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, dude. See you later, man.
All right, brother. Later. All right, that was my show with William Ramsey and Oddman. Boy, that was a lot to take in, and I kind of need to go back and listen to it again. That was good stuff. He just went off, and I didn't want to jump in. I didn't want to interrupt him too much, and I kind of had a way that I wanted the show to go. But man, if someone with that great of knowledge just starts going, you just gotta let them go. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna keep digging into this rabbit hole with Crowley and the connections to everything, because it's pretty insane. And I'm gonna have him on again. Definitely I'm gonna have him on again. I'm also gonna read this Revolution's End book by Brad Schreiber, I think he said. That sounds interesting, so I'm gonna have that guy on too. But you guys check out all of William Ramsey's works. You know, his podcast is badass. I listen to it a lot now. And yeah, just seek truth. Keep diving down rabbit holes and finding out the links, because that's how we get to the end of this, is by connecting all the dots for everybody that don't want to connect all the dots. But if we got all the information and all the links, it's going to be hard for them to avoid. So for now, you guys keep your chin up. Stuff's going to get crazy, but the good news is the system is crashing. They're not going to be able to hold this shit together. So keep fighting and live free, guys. We'll see you next time.